Frank, unfortunately, it just won't work. You're gonna have to take Garrett today, Felicia shouted loudly to inform him from their downstairs. It was early in the morning, and Frank was finishing up getting ready for the day as he looked into the mirror and sighed heavily before he shouted back to his wife from their upstairs bathroom. No worries, I can make it work. Today was Saturday, and typically the family would spend it together. However, this weekend, Frank needed to head into his office to finish some work for a project. Normally, his wife Felicia would be in charge of their children when duty called. However, today she needed to take their oldest son Ben to a friend's birthday party, in which siblings were not invited. Garrett was usually attached to his mother's hip, so it was unexpected when she told Frank he was in charge of their youngest son for the day, and she would not be taking him along. Since it was a weekend workday, Frank was happy he did not have to get dressed up in a suit and tie and can roll in donning jeans and a t-shirt. This made him feel a little more relaxed to start the day so he could focus on getting his son ready to come with him to work. Felicia already left to take Ben to his outing, so it was up to Frank to make breakfast for the two of them. He looked at his son with slight wonder while his mind was racing what to feed his child. Hey, bud, I'm gonna make myself some cereal. You want some too? Which one can I get you? He asked Garrett. Mom said I can have eggs today. Can you make me some instead? Not being the best cook, nor wanting to take the time, he quickly obliged, but proceeded to complete the task in a different manner than his wife. Frank reached up to grab a coffee mug and sat it down on the counter. He then opened the refrigerator and took out 2 eggs. He hovered the eggs up over the mug and cracked them into the vessel and scrambled them real quick. Without hesitation, he popped the mug into the microwave and set it for 1 minute. Beep, beep! The microwave went off, and as he opened the door to retrieve the eggs, he noticed a smell that could only be described as slightly funky. He smelled it again, pressed his finger into the top to make sure it was cooked, and shrugged off any doubt that it was not edible. He grabbed a fork out of the drawer and stuck it right into the middle of the mug, piercing the now scrambled eggs to pull it out. A cylindrical shape of eggs popped out onto the plate. Frank began to chop it up and threw some cheese on it and looked at his masterful breakfast creation, urging his son to eat quickly so they can head into work sooner than later. They soon proceeded to the garage to get into the car to leave. Frank's work was about 45 minutes away, but Garrett never cared. He just enjoyed being with his dad and cruising around in their golden-toned Acura. Neil Young was playing softly in the car with Frank humming along and his son enjoying his father's company. After nearly an hour of driving, they reached the front gate to his work building and waved to the security guard, who instantly recognized Frank and let him into their parking lot. While he was parking, he realized his son had never been to his new work building. Garrett got out of the car and looked in awe. It was a 32-story building with a sleek, modern look resembling a structure straight out of a New York architecture magazine. Frank noticed his son looking very excited and curious about this building. They walked through the front doors and passed by the front security, with Frank stopping for small talk and introduced his young son to the officers. Walking towards the elevator, Garrett's eyes began to grow big and bright. He had never been in a building this big with endless potential for fun. Frank, with his son's hand in his, headed towards the elevator and told Garrett to press number 23. The elevator ride seemed to take forever to Garrett, and once the doors opened, they were met with warm welcomes as Frank's team was already there and they were ready to get started. Once Garrett took a gander of how many employees his father had, he thought of a very important question to ask him. "Do y'all ever play freeze tag or hide and seek in this building? Do you think we can?" Frank laughed at this notion, as did the other employees who heard, and they soon begged their boss to play these games with childlike wonder. Being the boss and needing to get work done, he quickly shut down the idea and said, "Maybe we can play once the work is done." A loud boo came from his employees, but was done in jest. Just 15 minutes had passed, and Frank noticed Garrett becoming antsy. He asked his son if he wanted some candy or a snack, and without hesitation, Garrett's eyes lit up and emphatically nodded. Frank grabbed his son's hand and walked toward the office kitchen where the vending machines were. As soon as they turned the corner to go in, Garrett saw multiple machines that looked to be 20 feet tall and with a grocery store stuck inside. The possibilities of candy and snacks were endless. Garrett picked out 2 items and they headed back to Frank's office. Another 10 minutes passed, and all Garrett wanted to do was check out the vending machines and buy more junk food. However, his dad was zoned into his work and suggested Garrett go by himself and come straight back. With that in mind, Frank handed his son some money and again reiterated to him to immediately return to his office once he was done in the office kitchen. Buried in his work and trying to get a deadline out, Frank noticed something was off. Where was Garrett? It had been nearly 10 minutes, so he quickly got out of his chair and jogged to the kitchen. Seriously, where was Garrett? A slight panic set in, not for fear that his son would go missing, but what his wife would do to him if she found out. He knew that the security guards would not let his son leave the building. After all, he just introduced them to each other. He felt reassured he would find his son within the minute, as the building was always filled with workers throughout every floor. But wait! Frank just realized it was a Saturday and not many were in today. His stomach slightly dropped as he rushed into action and shouted calmly to his floor, "Stop what you're doing! I don't care what you're working on. I just lost Garrett and we have to find him. Right now." All of a sudden, a chuckle was heard from one of his employees, Jerome. "Oh man, Felicia's gonna kill you!" While the rest of his workers laughed as they knew his children meant the world and beyond to his wife. "I know that, Jerome. That's why I said stop what you're doing, as this might be the defining moment of your bonus amount this year," he quipped back in a deadpan manner. Since there was 11 workers there, he decided to split them up with 6 heading down the floors, while he and the 5 others would start to look at the ascending floors. He called security and told them to watch the elevators, and he and his team would take the stairwells and search every floor. Unfortunately, no one was in, so they had to look in every nook and cranny. This started to become tedious, and floor by floor, Garrett was not found. The next set of stairs, Frank saw the number 26 on the stairwell and thought there was no way his son could have made it this far. Panic started to set in as he decided to return back to the 23rd floor, in case Garrett had the same thought. He surveyed the scene and yelled out his son's name. He passed by the office, feeling more and more nervous, and pondered calling his wife to let her know what was going on. He figured it was not time yet, as it would only worry her and ruin the day for her and his other son, Ben. Frank normally had all the answers, but this time he was truly wondering his next step. He rubbed his chin aggressively on his chin as if this would help produce the right idea. All of a sudden he hears a ding! The elevator door opens. He recognizes a man from another floor from his building he has seen in passing. He looks down and sees his son with a big blue balloon in one hand and mashing a handful of candy into his mouth with his other, as a smile lies underneath. Frank is so confused but too relieved to figure out what adventure his son went on. He ran towards Garrett and bent down to give him a big embrace. His son innocently, not knowing what was going on, and none the wiser that his father deployed a massive search party, hugged his father back with love and adoration. Once the relief of losing his son left and contentment settled in, Frank looked at his son in the eyes and said with a chuckle, "Let's not tell Mom about this."